Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Paul, aka Canadian Snowman, here once again with History of Russia, Part 5. It says Part 5 is the last, but then it has Russian Revolution. So obviously, we're going to check that one out since that's going to be the last one. So really, technically, it's not the last one because we got one more. So that's exciting, right? It's not like completely done right now, but this, I guess, is the last episode leading up to the revolution. So, and I've seen a video on the revolution by Oversimplified, but that's kind of like it speeds through it. It doesn't really give you much detail and everything, and just like my memory is horrible, so I probably kind of forgot a whole lot of that. So, which tends to be the case, I'm kind of like when you do like a lot of videos, sometimes like you kind of get some videos mixed up with other videos. Like, oh, is that what went on your mind? That was a different, that was a different situation. That was a different, time period in video. So that happens to me a lot, or I get confused a lot. If I've seen something and then I do kind of like the same type of thing, but on a different channel. You kind of, even though you've kind of done it, you totally forget it because you kind of get that maybe that confused. But then obviously your memory, will probably might get kind of rejogged if I do end up remembering. I don't know if any of that made any sense at all, but it made sense in my head. So I apologize if you guys are confused. So yeah, I remember like saying that there's gonna be a repression or whatnot. I hope I'm remembering the end of part 4 right. And so it seems like there's going to be, obviously, if there's going to be a revolution, there's got to be a reason for it. So I'm not really expecting many great things in this video, but I guess we'll see. I know wasn't there like an assassination in the last one? Like, it was a bomb. I think so. I'm sorry if I'm wrong, but I think so. Uh, so yeah, let's see what part 5 has in store for us, and cool. Before we do, if you're new here, I would suggest to actually start from the part 1 because it makes more sense. And please hit the like and subscribe, please. And yeah, we'll continue our journey through Russia. Very interesting country, very large country, largest country in the world. And sorry, in congestion. And yeah, let's get on to video, right? I always think I'm like leaving something out right before I push play, so apologize if I am. You guys are awesome. Thank you for sticking around with me for so long. I have a lot of you that have kind of like followed the journey along with me through many of these series, so I really appreciate you guys. And yeah, push play. Big History TV, awesome channel, guys.
In 1881, Russian Emperor Alexander II was assassinated by left-wing terrorists in St. Petersburg. Today, the place where he was fatally wounded is marked by the magnificent Church of the Saviour on Spilled Blood.
That church still like, it's not like torn down or anything. It's like, is that, maybe if you live there, you tell me it's still like up to this day, right? Because I know that's just from way long ago. So it looks like an amazing looking church. So I hope that still standing. Yeah, you gotta love like the architecture just from history, because they didn't like they don't have the technology like we do today, where you can just type on a computer and then or whatnot. So they were done from drawings, and I don't know, that just like architecture like that in itself is like amazing. It's like, how did they do that? How long did it take them to do that? But that just the detail and stuff like that. I mean, you think, and it's always in churches, right? Like, I know this has nothing to do with the video, but like churches, back in the day, weren't they like the tallest buildings in the town? Like, they're the tallest ones. There had the most breathtaking to look at, like cathedrals and all that stuff. The art and everything put into them were just like amazing. The museum in their own right. Uh, yeah. So, anyways, let's get on with it. Sorry.
Magnificent Church of the Saviour on Spilled Blood.
Church of the Savior.
Alexander II had been a reformer, hailed as the liberator for freeing Russia's serfs. But his son and successor, Alexander III, believed his father's reforms had unleashed dangerous forces within Russia that ultimately...
Man, it's like everyone seems to resent their their parents, their dad, or they just want to, I don't know, it's not stirring up anyway. Now he wants to kind of like, sounds like he wants to erase what his dad did. Sorry.
His reforms had unleashed dangerous forces within Russia that ultimately led to his death. As emperor, he publicly vowed to reassert autocratic rule, declaring that, in the midst of our great grief, the voice of God orders us to undertake courageously the task of ruling, with faith in the strength and rightness of autocratic power.
Uh-oh.
The Tsar's secret police, the so-called Okhranka, was ordered to infiltrate Russia's many revolutionary groups. Those found guilty of plotting against the government were hanged or sent into internal exile in Siberia.
I'm always curious when they send them off, for exile. Is there like houses out there, or do they just kind of like drag them, put them on like a wagon, take them out in the middle of nowhere, and basically like say, see ya, with no housing, like survive on your own, just like you're on a TV show called Survivor, just you're off on your own. Is there like mines and camps, kind of like where you're like kind of like slaves and get a mine and stuff? Like, what exactly do you do? I mean, like, I know like Napoleon was sent off, but I think that's kind of different situation. He was a leader, so I'm sure he was living in luxury and stuff like that. But as far as like these revolutionary people, getting caught, I don't see, it ending up very good for them. So I'm always curious, when you're sent off like that, like what exactly is happening to you. Anyways.
In Siberia. Alexander III was a pious man who supported the Orthodox Church and the assertion of a strong Russian national identity. Russia's Jews became victims of this policy. They'd already been targeted in murderous race riots known as pogroms after false rumors were spread that they...
I'm sorry, man. I feel so sad for the Jews, man. They just, I don't know, maybe it's just a location they are, or just in Europe or whatnot, but damn, they just, man, can't get a break through history, it seems like, man. It's like, because obviously we know what happens in World War II. And, throughout these videos, it just, dang, they just doesn't seem like they can get a break, man.
Race riots known as pogroms after false rumors were spread that they were responsible for the assassination of the emperor. Now the government expelled 20,000 Jews from Moscow, and many who could began to leave the country. Over the next 40 years, around 2 million Jews would leave Russia, most bound for the USA. Concerned by the growing power of Germany, Russia signed an alliance with France, both sides promising military aid if the other was attacked. Sergei Witte was appointed Russia's new Minister of Finance. His reforms helped to modernize the Russian economy and encourage foreign investment, particularly from its new ally, France. French loans helped Russia to develop its industry and infrastructure.
That's good.
Work began on the Trans-Siberian Railway. Completed in 1916, it remains the world's longest railway line, running 5,772 miles from Moscow
Wow.
to Vladivostok.
That is long.
Alexander III was succeeded by his son, Nicholas II. His coronation was marred by tragedy when 1,400 people were crushed to death at an open-air celebration in Moscow.
You guys can correct me if I'm wrong. They were crushed to death because, like, I think this was one of the things I remembered from Oversimplified. I'm thinking this is the same thing, where weren't they like giving away food or something like that, and so people came from everywhere, and they didn't have enough food they didn't realize how many people were going to come in, so they weren't prepared for it, and so there was a riot because people are starving and they're coming for food and they're not getting it. I'm assuming this is the same thing that I learned in that video.
100 people were crushed to death at an open-air celebration in Moscow.
A lot of people too, man.
China granted Russia the right to build a naval base at Port Arthur. When China faced a major revolt known as the Boxer Rebellion, Russia moved troops into Manchuria under the pretext of defending Port Arthur from the rebels.
Okay.
This brought Russia into conflict with Japan, who also had designs over Manchuria and Korea. The Japanese made a surprise attack on Port Arthur, then defeated the Russian army at the giant Battle of Mukden.
Wow.
Russia's Baltic fleet, meanwhile, had sailed halfway around the world to reach the Pacific, where it was immediately annihilated at the Battle of Tsushima.
Oh, wow. Drive all that way to get annihilated.
Russia was left with no option but to sign a humiliating peace, brokered by US President Theodore Roosevelt. Meanwhile, the Tsar faced another crisis much closer to home. In St. Petersburg, a strike by steel workers had escalated, and plans were made for a mass demonstration. Tens of thousands of protesters marched to the Winter Palace to present a petition to the Tsar, asking for better workers' rights and more political freedom. But instead, troops opened fire on the crowds, killing more than 100. Bloody Sunday, as it became known, led to more strikes and unrest across the country.
Damn, man.
The crew of the battleship Potemkin mutinied, killing their officers and taking control of the ship. To defuse the crisis, Nicholas II reluctantly issued the October Manifesto, drafted under the supervision of Sergei Witte. It promised an elected assembly and new political rights, including freedom of speech, and was welcomed by most moderates.
Okay.
Russia's first constitution was drafted the next year. For the first time, the Tsar would share power with an elected assembly, the State Duma, though the Tsar had the right to veto its legislation and dissolve it at any time. Sergei Witte finally lost the Tsar's confidence and was dismissed. The Tsar's new Prime Minister, Stolypin, introduced land reforms to help the peasants, while dealing severely with Russia's would-be revolutionaries, so much so that the hangman's noose got a new nickname, Stolypin's necktie.
Wow.
But having survived several attempts on his life, Stolypin was shot and killed by an assassin at the Kiev Opera House. Meanwhile, Grigory Rasputin, a Siberian faith healer, had joined the imperial family's inner circle, thanks to his unique ability to ease the suffering of the Tsar.
Yeah, I remember this guy from the previous video too. Man, but this guy just seems creepy, man. I apologize, I know, but like, just continue on the video because I'm probably gonna say what's gonna happen in the video anyway, and so that way I know I'm right.
Circle, thanks to his unique ability to ease the suffering of the Tsar's hemophiliac son, Alexei.
Okay.
Despite sporadic acts of terrorism, Russia now had the fastest growing economy in Europe.
That's
Agricultural
good,
and industrial output were on the rise. Most ordinary Russians remained loyal to the Tsar and his family. Russia's future seemed bright.
Oh, World War One's about to begin. Yeah, it's like, industry's going good. And apparently, his approval rating seemed pretty good. Obviously there's that small portion who probably would say otherwise, but they're kind of got hung or, killed or sent off. But, things seem like they're kind of moving along pretty good. Yeah. But World War One's coming along, and we just covered World War One, and it doesn't really turn out very good for Russia, if you remember, or if I remember correctly.
Russia's future seemed bright.
Commercial?
Gulf Coast homeowners, by flipping this switch, I never have to pay my electric bill ever again. You
Really?
can too if you have a power meter like
You
this
paid
on the
mine,
side of your
dude?
house. You can qualify.
Oh, thanks, buddy.
In 1914, in Sarajevo, a Slav nationalist assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, sparking a European crisis. When Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, Emperor Nicholas ordered the Russian army to mobilize, to show his support for a fellow Slav nation. Austria-Hungary's ally, Germany, saw Russian mobilization as a threat and declared war. Europe's network of alliances came into effect, and soon all...
I forgot this in the World War One. It's like, forgot that, Germany didn't start World War One. It was Austria-Hungary, and Germany is a more advanced country kind of thing, and they're the ones that, I don't know, I guess they got caught up, in, like, I wonder what would have happened if they just stayed out of it. The war probably, it would have probably wouldn't have lasted very long, and everything would have just been done with. But I forgot. I always think of World War II, but yeah, Germany didn't start World War One. I forgot about that. I don't know why this matters right now, but sorry.
Europe's network of alliances came into effect, and soon all the major powers were marching to war. World War I had begun.
Yeah.
Russia experienced a wave of patriotic fervor. The capital, St. Petersburg, was even renamed Petrograd to sound less German. An early Russian advance into East Prussia ended with heavy defeats at Tannenberg and the Masurian Lakes. There was greater success against Austria-Hungary, but that too came at a high price. Russian losses forced the army to make a general retreat in 1915.
Yep.
In 1916, Russia's Brusilov offensive against Austro-Hungarian forces was one of the most successful Allied attacks of the war. But losses were so heavy that the Russian army was unable to launch any more major operations.
Wow.
In Petrograd, Rasputin, whose alleged influence over the Tsar's family was despised by certain Russian aristocrats, was murdered, possibly
Yeah.
with the help of British agents.
British were involved. Revolution.
The war put intolerable strains on Russia. At the front, losses were enormous, while in the cities, economic mismanagement led to rising prices and food shortages. In Petrograd, the workers' frustration led to strikes and demonstrations. Troops ordered to disperse the crowds refused and joined the protesters instead. The government had lost control of the capital.
Yeah.
On board the imperial train at Puskov, senior politicians and generals told the emperor he must abdicate, or Russia would descend into anarchy and lose the war. Nicholas accepted their advice and renounced the throne in favor of his brother, Grand Duke Michael, who effectively declined the offer.
Oh, wow.
400 years of Romanov rule were at an end. Russia was now a republic. A provisional government took power, but could not halt Russia's slide into economic and military chaos. Workers, soldiers, and peasants elected their own councils, known as Soviets. The Petrograd Soviet was so powerful, it was effectively a rival government, especially as discontent with the provisional government continued to grow. The Bolsheviks, under Vladimir Lenin, attracted growing support, with their radical proposals for an immediate end to the war, the redistribution of land, and transfer of power to the Soviets. In October, they launched a coup.
I'm sorry, I just paused in the middle of a sentence. So, okay, this is the part. So that's where the Soviet Union comes from. Then, okay, like I didn't know that. So, okay, makes perfect sense now. Because it went from Russia to the Soviet Union back to Russia. Okay, makes sense. And of course, all this going back home. Obviously, there's a lot of pressure on Russia to basically sign. Was it the treaty or whatnot with Germany to kind of stop the war there on the Eastern Front? Anyways, there we go.
In October, they launched a coup, masterminded by Leon Trotsky. Bolshevik Red Guards stormed the Winter Palace, where the provisional government met, and arrested its members. Lenin and the Bolsheviks were now in charge. Russia had been thrown upon a bold and dangerous course. Under a Marxist-inspired revolutionary party, it would now seek to create the world's first communist state.
Damn.
But first, it would have to survive the chaos and slaughter of one of history's bloodiest civil wars.
Damn.
Thank you to...
So, before all this happened, industry was doing good, business was doing good, and then you had World War One, and you had Lenin taking over, I guess, the Soviets. And if this didn't happen, and I guess we're about to have the revolution, but it seemed I can things be a lot different in Russia right now, right? I guess it's hard to say right now. We still got the revolutionary one. This ain't the last one we're doing, Russia, but. Man, it just makes you think of like what things have different things could be right now. Just on if I guess just so the Soviets I guess didn't take over and it was still the same before that. Sorry, I'm fumbling my words. But anyways, it's definitely another interesting video, and I always, like I said, I always find it cool when video series overlap, like we're overlapping with World War One, and that kind of stuff is really cool. So, but anyways, guys, please hit the like and subscribe, guys. Another fun video, and I've got one more to go in this series, one more, and yeah. So I appreciate you guys watching, like always having a lot of fun, and always appreciate the feedback. And yeah, so I'll catch you guys in the future video, the next video. Peace.